Thank you, Paris. Thank you for that introduction. So what we're going to do is so the first thing I want to tell you guys, because you're probably looking at your programs, so we're not the should I stay or should I go, but you guys should definitely stay. We're the games guys who were supposed to talk at 3:30, but we're games guys, so we never respect the time or anything like that. Well, maybe you do because you're more in the CTO kind of part.
The CFO, yeah.
CFO,
so, yeah.
okay.
I tend to keep things a little bit more concise and certain, but definitely we can do good work, Alexis.
Okay, so that's Joaquim, and he's from SOCIALPOINT, as his T-shirt is saying. And
Nice
I'm
one.
Alexis, and my T-shirt doesn't say I'm from EREPUBLIK Labs. I think the important thing to say, and Paris was saying, that games is a huge market. Probably a lot of you don't know that the games market actually is bigger than cinema and music put together. And basically, I think the first thing that, Joaquim, I'd like to ask you is, where do you think the market is today?
The market today is definitely mobile. This is where we see growth. We were born in the era of Facebook, desktop games, but we saw a very, very strong shift, fast shift towards mobile. Nowadays, basically Apple and Google. This is where the market is going. And actually, in the last 12 months, the market has doubled. So it's about a bit more than a billion.
So the size of the market has doubled in the past 12 months?
Yes. It's more than $1 billion a month right now.
How big?
More than $1 billion a month. So if we include China, it's probably around 14 to 15 billion a year.
15 billion?
14 to 15 billion a year at least.
And that's only the mobile games market, or?
Only mobile.
Only mobile. Okay.
Yes, and only Apple and Google. Yeah.
Only Apple and Google. So you're only taking Android and iOS. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
So you guys at SOCIALPOINT, you're a very successful Spanish, games company.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. And what do you think were the keys for you guys to do well in this market? Because you guys started with Facebook, right?
Yes, we did. The company was founded in 2008, initially to bring games into the Facebook platform. I think the most growth we've seen is in mobile, and the key was to see that trend and move fast.
Okay. And so basically, right now, there's the term, red ocean and blue ocean. I know you're familiar. Like when you look at the market, when there's not a lot of competition and everything is to be done, you call that a blue ocean. You have lots of opportunities, you don't have too much competition and all that. Would you agree with me if I told you that today maybe the mobile games market might have been a blue ocean 2 years ago, but now it is a red ocean?
It's really red. It's really competitive. There are many good companies bringing out games on a monthly basis. So it's really, really a red ocean. I think basically we have experienced high growth because we can bring products to the world. But the world can also bring products where we are, right? So everybody competes. Everybody competes.
So, I mean, would you say, what are the chances of a startup now in Spain, for example, that maybe doesn't have the years that you or our company has to do well in this market? Is it still possible to do a game startup here in Spain and do well, you think?
I think it still is. This, in the end, it's a creative process, and you never know what the customers will like tomorrow. What we can see, basically, is that the games in the top chart, so in the top positions of the charts, let's say the top 20, top 30, do not change a lot. But below that, they do change. There are new things coming up. So if I were to start today, I would try to bring in a game, an innovative game, something that is surprising. Try to reach maybe the top 100, top 70 in the market. This, on a worldwide basis, is enough to make good money. And then from that position of a strength...
So you have to be top 70, top 100 in the market to make what you're calling good money. But every day there's 3,000... Is it 3,000 new games that come out on the App Store on Android?
To be honest, I don't know the exact figure, but it's several hundreds, absolutely, yes.
So it is super difficult.
It is, it is. But again, no, it's a creative process. So somebody with a good idea can still bring it. Then the investor community is also interested. It's a hot market from an investor point of view. So it is possible with a good product and good user statistics to find the financial support to bring it to the next level as well.
You guys just did a big round, right?
Well, we have done 2 rounds.
Yes.
Initially with a local VC,
Yeah.
and then with 2 international VCs, an European and a US one.
It was about 20 million euros, something like that. I don't know if it's public or no.
Maybe you are thinking about the one that was announced a couple of months ago. This was not a funding round, but basically we have now the good situation of having Highland in our shareholding, no? But not through a funding round. So it was more a shareholding agreement.
Okay. I mean, one of the things that does surprise me about Spain, and why I think actually Spain is an amazing place to build a startup in general. And I mean, I'm French, I'm not Spanish, but my wife is Spanish, so that forces me to live here. That and the good food. But it's an amazing place to do a startup here. Just because there is an amazing talent. I mean, you guys are in Barcelona. I think it's a bit harder to get talent in Barcelona now. But in Madrid, I mean, whenever we put a job availability out there, we get literally hundreds of applications, which is and a lot of them are very, very high quality. And the second thing is I think the investors are really starting to look at Spain. I mean, we can see just by the number of investors that are here in this event, but in general. Because one of the things that always surprised me is if you look at the amount of money that's actually available in Spain from investors to invest into startups, that's from Spanish investors, it's very small. I think it's about 200 million euros. But an interesting development is, at least in the game space, usually I'm kind of pretty much against the government, government getting involved. But I was very surprised to see that there's this 0.5% interest loan, and they unlocked 35 million euros just for the games industry.
Yeah.
So what do you think of that?
Oh, what I think is that in the end, what you need is creativity, and this is what we have, both in Barcelona and Madrid, generally speaking, everywhere in Spain. We also need good development, so I think tech universities are of good quality. So I think basically what we can see is the result of this. We are not the only ones. There are many bigger and smaller gaming companies. And when I also look at the bigger companies, European companies, they are establishing, it's very loud, they are establishing studios, both in Madrid and in Barcelona. No? We can talk about Ubisoft, Gameloft, King, and so on.
King just established a studio in Barcelona, I think.
Yeah, I think they have now 2.
Yeah.
Because they have a size that they want to keep as a standard size for a studio, and they will keep opening, no? If they need to grow beyond that size. On the one side, it creates also a lot of competition in terms of getting and retaining talent. On the other side, Barcelona is becoming a hub for gaming. More and more people can come to Barcelona to work in this industry, either for us or for any other of the very nice, good companies that are around.
Okay. And you think that the availability of funding, you think is still a problem in Spain? It's no longer a problem? How do you see it?
I mean, I think this has evolved in a very positive way in the last years. I don't think this should be right now one of the, let's say, key restrictions, no? Okay. And even maybe less in this kind of industry where you might need money to be in the top 10 charts, but you don't need that much to bring a game in the top 100 and start your career there or your startup there.
Okay. So I was surprised because you spoke a lot, I mean, you've been speaking a lot about just mobile games, right? And we say it's a red ocean, right? It's like the strongest survive. 3 years ago, the only thing we would talk about would be Facebook, or 4 years ago would be Facebook games. And you guys started with Facebook games. I think you still have a decent business with Facebook games.
Yes.
So where's Facebook going for games and maybe in general? I mean, how do you see it? Do you think there's no longer a games market with Facebook, or it's changed somehow?
Well, in my opinion, Facebook has a great advertising business. Most of their revenues come from there. The gaming business is still there. We are still making good money. But when we are thinking about a startup is a lot about growth and future. And then growth, currently we see it in the mobile platforms. So I wouldn't say that Facebook is not a good place to have games. But I would say that if you want to be in the future growth, you need to go mobile as well.
So basically what you're saying, if you're VC backed, you've got to be on mobile, basically, because...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You can do cross-platform. We have seen also very positive results from having cross-platform games because users play in the different platforms, and Facebook helps a lot in bringing virality in the games, no? in making the games grow without the need of paid marketing. But definitely, current growth is more on the mobile side.
And you were speaking a lot when we're talking about talent and all that, and we're talking about what you think you need to be successful with games. You were speaking a lot about creativity, and although I like that and I like to hear that, I would challenge that a little bit, and saying that the games market, maybe because it's a red ocean, is looking more and more like the Hollywood studio market, where you do Rambo 1, Rambo 2, Rambo 3, Rambo 9. It's like a lot of the games that we see succeeding now, they're basically copycats or very, very close to games that have succeeded in other platforms or that are similar. You see a lot of, I mean, there must be 20 Clash of Clans, there must be, there's a lot of those types of games. So do you think it's more about creativity, or it's really just about execution and marketing power, and maybe that's why it's always the same guys that are at the top?
It depends a bit on your stage of development. I think you always have to try to surprise the customer, the user, or the gamer with something new. If you just do a copycat of something without any surprising effect, the customer might not have a good reason to play your game, yes? There are many big established games like Clash of Clans, Candy Crush. You can bring in a clone. There are actually many, many clones of Clash of Clans. And you don't see them in the top of the charts, right? So I think some of the established companies might have or might lose eventually a bit of the creativity because they also do portfolio management, no? So I have a big game, I have to launch new games, I don't want these new games to be a failure because that will maybe tarnish a bit my brand. So eventually you tend to become a little bit less daring. Yeah. But if you want to make it big, you have to make it different as well.
If you want to you have to make it different.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But that doesn't mean that you don't look at the market. Huh? I mean, creativity and analyzing the market, understanding the customers, all of that remains. No, you're doing things, and probably is one of the mistakes. No, many small developers, they want to do the game they like. Yeah. No? It's not for the market. It's because I like it. That might be one of the mistakes. I try to do it differently. No, we look at the market. We try to see what games do well, what genres, what thematics. Where things are moving, no? From a control point of view, user interface point of view, everything. No? But then you need that creativity. No? You cannot just go and copy something. That doesn't give a good reason to the user to change. No? And now some of the most established games, they have been around for some time. So the best gamers are deeply involved. They are psychologically invested in those games. So moving those good customers to your proposal, to your product, is not easy.
Yeah. It used to be that, one of the great things, I remember when we started 7 years ago, to do our first game, that went on to make, tens of millions of euros, we did it with between 6 people and 300, maybe we invested 300,000 euros for the first kind of version of that game. Over the years, we invested quite a lot more. So, I mean, it was an amazing return. And we did one game, and that game worked.
Mm-hmm.
Today,
Yeah.
it's a bit different, right?
Red ocean, right? I mean, people, if you bring in the first mobile game ever, they only have one game to choose from. And what you show is already surprising. And they want to play it, no? It's something that, well, we have proven it. People like to play on mobile while they are on transit or also sitting in the sofa at home. There are many reasons to play mobile, even if you are static at home, right? But nowadays, users have so much to decide and it's so easy also, no? So you can download 10 games. They are for free. We are in the free-to-play business model, so you can download it for free. And if you don't like it, and sometimes gamers take decisions in less than 10 seconds, they stop it. So that first impression and everything else, the industry has evolved, has matured during this time. And people are bringing in better art, more things are more detailed. They are more.
I remember we used to say when it was Facebook games, free games, because we're talking here about free games mostly, not the games that you have to buy and put in your console. We're talking about the free games that you play on your mobile, and all that. That you had 5 minutes to confirm the player that this is worth his time and this is worth him spending time. Now I hear people say you've got 30 seconds, man.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's true. It is. So, I mean, these are the rules of the game, no? Of the gaming business. So it's good. I mean, you have to focus on what we say, pushing the drop point further, no?
Okay.
So.
And what do you think? So Wuga, which is a German games company that's quite successful, they kind of they did this chart that they shared online of their hit. I think they call it their hit finder process, and they show that they start at the top of the pyramid 40 games, they do 40 prototypes, and then they go and they go and they go, and they do 40 prototypes in order to get 2 hits maybe. I mean, so people like us, for example, where we'll spend 2 years now doing a game, we'll try and do something new, not copy something. We're actually doing that next week. We're launching Worldwide Tactical Heroes, which is going to be the first turn-based tactical game on iOS, multiplayer, 3D and all that.
I'm a player of it. I like it.
You've played it already. Good, thank you. So we're crazy, right? Because if we only have one chance in 40 to succeed, investing millions of euros in one game is stupid.
Well, I think the industry is a bit hit-driven, no?
Yeah.
So we are trying to bring some science or, let's say, thought-through processes to hit it more times than you fail, no? Yeah. There are different ways. We do it differently, I would say.
So how do you guys do it, for example? So we have one extreme, which is Wuga, 40 games, and and they get 2 hits. We're probably Republic Labs with maybe another extreme, where we've over 7 years. This is only going to be our 2nd game. And yes, we did one game that we did 2 games before that we killed, that we didn't launch, but this game we're launching. So where are you guys?
Probably a little bit in the middle. So we try to focus a lot. And I cannot imagine ourselves working in 40 different prototypes. No?
You can't work on 40 different things.
No,
but you guys
no.
are there's 200 and something of you. So you're as big as Wuga. Wuga's 250 people, you are 200.
220.
So same size.
Yeah, it's similar size. But still, one of the things that I think have been a reason for success at SocialPoint is to focus. So to be able to say no to many, many things, even to some good ideas, no? But in the end, you cannot do everything. So I think we work a lot on many ideas, but then we try to focus on 4 or 5 prototypes, not more than that.
Okay. So for example, this year, 2014, how many games have you guys launched so far?
2014.
This year, how many games have you guys launched?
And 14. We have launched basically the Android version of Monster Legends, and in January 26, the iOS version of Monster Legends. And we have soft launched 2 other games. Soft launch for us is just a market test.
Yeah.
So basically, I think the idea is to bring 1, 2, maximum 3 games in the market. But it's difficult. As I said, it's very competitive, and also the level of statistics that we want to see from the users, the average, is high. You know.
So actually, I wanted to ask you about this a little bit, because so like a lot of people say, okay, if you get less than say 40% of the players who install your game coming back on the next day, if you get say 20 or 30%, then that's it. Your game's never going to work. You should kill it. So trash in the bin the 1 year work that you've done, right? But the problem is now there's a red ocean. There's many, many more games. Those 40% rates are becoming harder and harder to get. So do you think that we have to evolve a little bit how we measure whether a game has the potential to be successful, or we need to maintain that?
I think the statistic is very much linked to the type of game you want to make. If you are looking for a more hardcore kind of game, you cannot look at 50 or 60% first day retention. You can accept lower levels, basically because a lot of people will find it maybe too difficult to play. But then you're focusing a lot on a niche of the market. And then what you have to see, to be honest, first day retention is a good measure, but I mean, the business is built on 20% 1 year retention, right? If 20% of your players of every cohort continue playing your game, or at least 20% of them continue playing your game, you should be good. It doesn't matter if this curve is taking a bigger share of the market or lower. Then you will have to look also at the monetization of these players. No? I think you can look at lower statistics depending on the market you are trying to approach.
Okay. And so there was a huge debate for people who are familiar with games between the traditional way of selling games, which is you pay 50 euro, 40 euro up front, and then if you get a shitty game, your problem. But but normally hopefully you get a good game. And the way we do games, which is you don't pay anything for the game, but then for certain things in the game, maybe if you want to go faster in the game or accelerators, depending also, you pay a few things. Do you think there's still a future for what we call premium games, games that we pay at the beginning, or is now everything going to be free to play?
Let's say, premium games, mainly console, some PC-based games, is still a very big market. It's not growing, but because it's very big, there's still future. I think it's a niche, no? The quality, the budgets, some of these games take larger budgets than movies, no? So it's a different experience. It's a different kind of...
Sorry, a premium game, like the top ones, like Grand Theft Auto 4, I think the budget was $300 or $350 million.
Destiny 7, it's way more than that.
But then they made $1 billion in 2 days, I think.
Yes, exactly. So the take-up curve is, well, people are sleeping in the streets, no, to buy it when it is released. And then in the next 4 or 5 weeks, it's when everybody buys it, no? So I think that's a market segment. Definitely, it's still there. No? But talking about maybe startups, I see it a lot more complicated. Well, maybe even impossible.
To do premium games.
To do premium games, yeah, it's tough.
But don't you think that it's also becoming more complicated to do free-to-play games? Because right now you have the supercells of this. I'll say, you have one. I'm going to say you got Division 1, Primera División, which you'll have the Kings and the Supercells and all that, who are turning over €1 billion or more, right? And if you look at who controls the top 10 grossing, where we say there's probably 70% of the revenues, they're practically all of it is controlled by these companies, right? The Candy Crush, Clash of Clans, Heyday, Boom Beach, etc. Right? Then maybe you have a second level of companies that are doing tens of millions or maybe low hundreds of millions, where I'm assuming I would include you guys and ourselves, and I feel that market is becoming a difficult and dangerous market to be in. And then you've got the smaller companies which are too big to be indies, but too small to be like you or us, where if their game doesn't work, they're screwed. And then you have the indies. So in 1 or 2 years' time, who will be left? If you want to start a games company, if you have a games company, are you screwed? You're in that space where you're a bit too big to be indie, but you're not SocialPoint or Republic Labs yet?
I mean, nobody said it was going to be easy.
Yeah.
I think that when you have growth, you have opportunity. So the same situation without any growth, without doubling revenues in market size in the last 12 months would be a lot more difficult or maybe not possible. And then in the last 2 years, we have seen the emergence of mobile on top of Facebook. No? So we were focusing on Facebook. And then I remember companies like Kixeye. They were reference companies in the desktop area. And they are nowhere to be seen now in the mobile side. No? So I don't know what will happen in the next 2 years. Maybe there's another technology, maybe the Oculus Rift or something, no? Maybe the wearable devices.
Apple Watch. Yeah.
So it creates opportunities all the time.
Oculus Rift, virtual reality.
Exactly.
So new opportunities will come from new platforms.
I believe so. I've seen it already, the shift from desktop to mobile, from Facebook to Google and Apple. And I'm sure we will see it in the next couple of years again, or 3 or 4.
Okay. So we've got about 3 minutes. I have one more question to ask you, but I don't know if we do questions in the audience or not. I'm sorry, I just arrived. Anyone wants to ask a question? You want to ask a question? Yeah. Do you mind shouting in really loud? Oh no, you've got a mic there. Yeah.
Well, my question is regarding the pay-to-win model. What do you think about that in the future? Because all of the console games are trying to do, for example, EA is trying to change to a pay-to-win model where you pay an initial price and then you need to pay more to continue gaming and being successful, especially in the competitive gaming area. Okay,
so I'll start with that. So I think the pay-to-win model is very, very, very bad. We're not talking about the pay-to-win. We're talking about the free-to-play. I think the company that really has down to a science, has done it very well, is League of Legends, Riot Games, where they've really made sure that it's not pay to win. I think the more core or mid-core your game is, the less you can make your game pay to win. The more casual your game is, the more maybe you can put a bit of pay to win in it, but pay to win in general, in game design, was a bad idea before and is a worse idea now. Would you agree?
Pay to win.
Pay to win.
Basically, I'm heading our efforts in Asia, and pay to win is one of the key reasons for Japanese users not to play games, because they believe that their neighbor is richer. No? So what's the point in playing a game where I cannot be better, right? I think in free-to-play there will be also evolutions and innovation in the business model itself, but pay to win still works in West. It doesn't work in the East. Or not so well, at least. Okay.
Is there one more question? If not, I have one that's burning me. No? No? Okay, so I have one final question. We've got 1 minute. So, Spain. So great, now there is funding. There is great events like this one that allow people to network and all that. I don't see a lot of acquisitions, in particular in the game space. You guys, for example, would be in a position to make acquisitions. Why are there so little acquisitions still here? Because if you're a VC or an investor, you're looking for an exit, right?
So, yes, I think...
In 20 seconds, no pressure.
Personally, our company is not looking at acquisitions currently because we are so much focused on our own pipeline, right? And as I said, we are focused and we don't want distractions. I think what we can see for now is startups being funded. No? There is now a new initiative in Barcelona led by Caixa Capital Risk, for instance, to do that. No? So, but we'll see acquisitions in the future.
So, okay, so we'll have to do the acquisitions. Okay, great. Joaquim, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you all.
We're out of time. Okay.